Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. It has been a crazy busy week here working on these interior doors. We also delivered a bunch of cabinets, but let's get into this door project. All right, so we are not done with the doors. This is going to be a 2, maybe 3-part series just because there's a lot of doors to make and there's a lot of steps involved, and one video would just be way too long. We're making these interior stave core doors, and they have, so far we've got a bunch of styles here, we've got a bunch more over there that are in the process of getting to this point. So first I'll explain kind of what a stave core door is and why we're building these doors like this for this project. So first, what is a stave core door? So a stave core door, will give you the appearance of a solid wood door, but it's actually veneers glued onto a solid wood core. So the core is all these strips. We're using poplar for the core, and then we have the fir on the outside edges so that the edge of the door you see the fir and not the poplar. But it's a bunch of these pieces glued up, and then we take our veneers and then we glue these on the top and bottom. And so this will make all of our stiles and rails. So throughout the video, when I'm talking about the veneers, these are the veneers, and then as I mentioned, staves. When you hear me say, well, we're stacking up staves over here or whatever, this is what I'm talking about, is the core of the door. So why are we doing stave core doors, especially for interior doors? Well, because this project, we're using this rough sawn fir that we just did all those cabinets out of as well, but this was provided by the client and they want everything rough looking. It's going to get sanded a little bit, but you're still going to see all this texture. And so I can't mill the face of any of these boards, which certainly presents its challenges, and you'll kind of see that throughout the video. But they had this stuff milled down from their own property, and they had it kiln dried, so it's all good and dry. It's really nice material, and they had it milled at like an old mill with a big circular saw, so it's got these nice circular saw marks on it. But we really have no choice but to make these doors this way. We're working with all 1-inch material that they have, so everything has to get resawn, and then we put everything through the sander. And yeah, it certainly has been challenging because, like I said, I can't do anything to the face of this. But a stave core door, because you have this grid work in here, or the stave with all these pieces glued together and then the veneers on top, it's very, very stable. Not gonna move and twist and warp potentially like a solid wood door could. This is really good method for exterior doors. So yeah, that's why we're building the doors like this. So I do have some experience building big doors like this. However, not in my own shop, not since I've been in business by myself. The shop that I used to work at years ago back in Connecticut, we would build stave core doors and like really big, fancy, crazy doors. And they had big equipment. They had a big press to put everything in, or it certainly was a lot easier doing it with all that big machinery and everything like that. So I do have some knowledge of this stuff. I'm not a professional door guy. I have done it, just not in my own shop. But yeah, let's just get right into this thing and start making some door parts. Well, all right, here we go. We've got a stack of 250 board feet of 4/4 poplar here. And due to poor planning on my part and not ordering material far enough ahead, we are doing all the milling ourselves. You could certainly have the lumberyard plane your material down and give you a straight edge on one side. This would make this process go a lot faster, but I waited to the last minute, so we're doing the milling ourselves. So each side got one pass through the planer and one pass through the sander. And then it all gets stacked on the bench, and I bring things over to the jointer to give it a straight edge and stack it up over on the saw so Rowdy can start ripping things to width. Now all this material here is for our staves, so this is all for the cores. And we have two different thickness doors. We have some doors that are 1.75 thick and some that are 1.375. So we have a ton of material. We went through this whole 250 board feet and it gave us just about exactly what we needed for all the styles. And so a lot of standing at the saw, the planer, the jointer, and the sander. Now, the reason we sanded everything is after we rip and we stand these things on edge to glue up, that sanded face will give you a much better glue joint than something coming out of the planer. So that's why we ran it through the sander. And then I'm starting to break down some fur for the outside edge of our staves. We had a bunch of this material to mill up as well. And then here we are ripping things down. So in total we have 14 doors that we're making, and you can see things just really starting to pile up in the shop, especially with all the cabinets we have in here. Things really started to get tight, and moving all this material around was getting a little tricky. And then we got a delivery of our new VacuPress vacuum bag system, which we are going to be getting into a little bit later. So here we go. We've got our first set of staves ready for glue up. I picked up a couple of these rollers on Amazon. These glue rollers, they actually really work great. You just fill up the little hopper up top with glue and then they roll out really, really nice. They're kind of tricky gluing these because you want to get it spread evenly, and all these pieces were kind of all over the place. They weren't laying perfectly flat. So we've got some calls there to keep everything flat. Now this is our first glue up, and by the end of the week we got very efficient with these glue ups because we were doing a couple of these a day. And so we're just using a ton of clamps to get everything, to get some nice squeeze out. And then it was over to milling up material for veneers. We had a bunch of 1x12s that we were breaking down to get, we needed pieces 6.25 inches wide. And so we had to use the 1x12s. I was jamming to something on my headphones. And you can see I had to move that other pile just to be able to make a rip on the saw. Luckily, later this week, we are going to be delivering this stuff. So now we've got our material ripped, and you can see I'm putting a saw kerf in all of our veneer pieces. And I put one on both edges, just coming up about 1 inch, 1.25 inches. And this makes resawing go so much faster. The blade tracks nicely in those grooves, and it just kind of runs through like butter. So that made the resawing step go pretty smooth. And then we had to go right from there to the sander. I couldn't put these pieces through the planer because we are dealing with a lot of knots in this stuff, and when we put it through the planer, the knots just like explode. So then you're left with obviously just big holes, which we didn't want. So we went from the resaw to the sander, and this is like real time right here of resawing one piece. You can see it's pretty quick compared to if you didn't have those saw kerfs in it. I know it looks slow because everything else is sped up, but it was actually pretty quick. And then it was back to gluing up more staves. And you can see we've got some on the ground. We've got more ready to go into clamps. Got staves on the bench. So it was a lot of back and forth this week doing glue ups and just trying to keep things moving. So we were bouncing from milling to glue ups to milling and so on and so forth. And we're using Tight Bond 3 on everything just because it gives you a little bit more working time. And so this was Tuesday morning, and I was by myself. Rowdy's only here 3 days a week in the shop. So Tuesday morning, came in, got some stuff out of clamps, and then it was time to set up the vacuum bag. And I did do another stave glue up as well. You can see it over there in clamps. But I've got a sheet of 3/4 melamine here, and this is going to be my platen for the bag. And all the corners on everything need to get rounded over so that they don't puncture the bag. And I actually used the rounded corner on my bench, and with a flush trim bit did all the corners on this platen, which that was really handy and worked out really good. So we go around, hit every corner, and then everything got a 1/4 inch round over. Again, this is just to protect the bag from puncturing. Now, the VacuPress system on their website, the video is not sponsored by them or anything, but their website, he's got videos on the whole process and how to set up your bag and the platen and everything, and it's very, very helpful. So I just kind of followed all the guys' advice over there, and then the directions that it comes with as well were very helpful. So this made this whole process go really smoothly and kind of took any confusion out, because I'd never used a vacuum bag system before. So I was grateful to find the website with all their videos that they had on there, because you go on YouTube for something like this and there's so much different information about it. But I'd recommend, if you're getting a VacuPress system, to check their website. And so I'm laying out and putting saw kerfs about an 1/8 inch deep in this thing, and this is where it's to pull so the vacuum can pull air and get everything. It needs these grooves to be able to pull the air from one end of the bag to the other. And I'm just hitting everything with the track saw. I was kind of doing 2 passes on each cut because I have a thin curved blade in there that's only about a 1/16, and they recommend about an 1/8 inch groove. Sure would have been fine, but I wanted to just make it an 1/8 inch groove. So then take the platen off, it's all ready to go. And then I lay out the bag, and getting it in here was a little tricky once I get it started. And then it kind of just slides right in, but getting it started by myself was a little tricky. And so that's the hole that I drilled, and then the hose attaches to the underside of this hole. And so I put that piece of plastic through, and the saw kerfs actually go through that, so that thing is sucking all the air through those grooves. And then I wasn't gluing anything here. This was just kind of a test piece just to see how this thing works. And this is sped up 2 times. And this is how fast it removes the air, which it removes it very quickly for the vacuum pump that I got. Again, their website, they have different size pumps, and their website explains all of it, so you get the right vacuum for what you need. And yeah, then it was the next day, and Rowdy's back, and we're sanding veneers. So sanding these veneers is a tedious process because everything comes out of the resaw, and they're not perfectly uniform. So some are thicker than others, and we just gotta keep making a ton of passes until we get everything to uniform thickness. So I originally planned for 1/4 inch veneers on everything, and we ended up getting about 5/16, and then we stopped because we figured that was good. We can just mill our staves down a little bit more, and they would just be a little thinner, and that way we wouldn't have to stand at the sander for another hour. It wouldn't take an hour, but so here's a set of staves. This is a crucial step, flattening them. After they come out of glue up, they need to be good and flat and straight, because this is what we're gluing our veneers to. And after the veneers are glued to it, there's no more milling. So what you get is what you get. So taking my time here, and this joiner really makes nice work of this, but it we just get these nice and flat. Then we move over to the planer and plane them down. Again, planing, because we had to do multiple passes. You want to make sure you're taking off an even amount on each side, and just keep eyeballing those things and making sure they are good and flat and straight. Now, and some of these doors are 8-foot doors. And then some of them are 90-inch doors. So a few different sizes, a few different thicknesses. Some of these are going to be pre-hung, some of them are barn style doors. And then here you can really see those stiles looking good coming out of the sander. And again, that sanded surface is going to be a really nice glue surface for our veneers to glue down to. And so after we got them out the sander, I went over, straightened an edge, and then we ripped them to their width. We're going 1/4 inch oversized, so these styles are all going to finish at 6 inches wide. I'm ripping them to 6 1/4, and that just gives us a little room to straighten everything out with our veneers after they come out of the vacuum bag. Just taking my time getting a nice clean cut, making sure everything is still looking good and straight. And Rowdy is in the back there, cutting our veneers down to size and getting those ready. And so everything is about 1 inch long as well right now. And then checking out our veneers, getting ready for our first glue up in the bag. And so far, everything's gone really nice and smooth. And so I was kind of feeling ambitious and thought, well, let's just start with 4 glue ups. Did a dry run, everything went in the bag, seemed fine. And so we get glue on everything, and you can see those rollers really are awesome. They just spread a nice even amount of glue. And so we're using pin nails at the end. Like I said, everything's 1 inch long just to keep everything from sliding when it goes in the bag. And we do the same thing for the other side. Get them in the bag. And I threw a bunch of these rubber pads on that I had, and this could have contributed to the problem that we're about to run into. But I've seen others do this, and kind of keeps the bag from puncturing. But as soon as we sucked all the air out, you can see those veneers were sliding all over the place. The pin nails were not enough. They were not holding. And so, happened again. Had to pull some things out and adjust. And at this point, we're fighting the glue setting up as well. Finally, we got them all in there. I was panicking. That kind of took the wind out of my sails for the day. And one of them, unfortunately, came out of the bag, and you can see it slid over a good 3/4 of an inch. So that one is lost, unusable. So, unfortunately, you live and you learn, but we did save 3 of them. So here what I'm doing, I'm rounding over the top veneer with an 1/8 inch round over, so that when it goes in the bag, I'm not putting anything over the top this time, because I don't think those rubber mats were helping the situation. And I'm putting glue on everything here, and then we're only going to do 2 at a time this time. So again, everything got pinned. Get those things in there, and everything seemed okay this time. Moved a little bit on one of them in the middle, but not enough to ruin it. They were savable. So here we go. They're coming out of the bag now. You can see I'm peeling off some plastic wrap. Ended up, after we did a couple glue ups as well, I didn't wrap anything with the plastic wrap, and so glue got all over the inside of the bag. So I learned my lesson, and so everything now gets wrapped with that plastic, and it just keeps the glue from getting all over the inside of your bag. So like I said, the whole vacuum bag thing is all new to me, so we're figuring it out. But there I just flush trimmed the veneer. It was only over about a 1/16 on that one. Flush trimmed it to my stave, and then we can take it to the saw, so then I can reference off that edge to rip everything down. So I ripped everything to 6 1/8, and then spun them around and ripped them down to 6 inches. And so after that mishap with the first glue up and losing that one style, we had to remake some material, obviously, and to remake that one. And it's a lot of work, you know, after you do all that work and then put it in the bag and the glue up comes out and it's no good. It's frustrating, but we learned from it. So pretty happy with how these are all coming out. Everything is good and straight, and it's challenging working with this material, but these doors I think are going to come out really, really nice. All right, so that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully maybe you learned something. Hopefully maybe you learned something not to do, because we did make some mistakes along the way. But we still have a bunch. The styles that are glued up right now are for our thicker doors. For 1 3/4 doors. We do have a bunch of thinner doors, 1 3/8 doors. The staves are all glued up. We have to put veneers on them and put them in the bag. So throughout the week, this week, we will still be gluing a bunch of veneers onto those, as well as making the rails and making the panels. So be sure to look out next week for part 2. But that's it. The Patreon link is down below if you want to join and be a patron. It is much appreciated. I appreciate all you guys who are already over there on the thing. And yeah, if you guys have questions, leave them below. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next week as we continue making all these doors. Peace.